Well, this is Truth Seeker here, and I'm trying something different. I've got a new microphone. Actually, it isn't new, but it's a microphone, a little miniature microphone that I bought about a year ago that I've never used. But I realized that I can record and download as a stereo, and it will sound better. But anyway, it's good to keep in touch with you guys and to make recordings when I can, especially with my time so pressed. There are a number of things that have occurred. I just got an email this morning from my cousin, whom I talked about in the last email. Now, he's very insistent on keeping this dialogue going, and I'm not sure that I really want to. I think I may have quashed it. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. But I tried to imply that maybe I'm not going to be changing my mind on anything. And I think it comes down to really one basic thing, because he's arguing that there's some atheist who was the most adamant atheist there was, most ardent atheist there was, and he listened to reason, capitulated, and became a believer again, I guess. I think he lost his faith and became an atheist, and then he regained his faith. I don't know what the story is. But then I don't think that a person who gives up his conviction is necessarily as ardent as they make themselves sound. The arguments, either they didn't understand the argument for atheism, or their belief, their understanding, their atheistic understanding, maybe they didn't understand their reasons well enough for taking the atheist position, or they just weren't as ardent a believer as they claim to have been. I think once a person has done enough research in a particular topic, they should be pretty much as satisfied as can be with their position. They shouldn't be waffling around back and forth. I did point out to him that the greatest or fastest growing demographic is the nuns demographic, which includes the atheist. I believe right now it's something of the nature of 15% or so. But aside from all of that, I think it just comes down to really one thing, because there's so many different aspects of this argument, this contention regarding atheism. Cosmologically, please forgive the noise. These guys really love to make the noise. I guess it's the motorcycle of the water. But there's so many things that just fit together. I mean, from a scientific perspective that the Bible students believe in the permanency of God's plan of salvation. Everything is forever. I mean, when you put this contingency on a belief, on a faith, forever, then there are a lot of implications, because we live in a world in which all things come to an end. You know, this is one thing that this is an aspect that we don't really talk about that much. We're so concerned with beginnings. You know, well, who began with, you know, how did the universe start? You know, it had to have been a creator, and we're always concerned with beginnings. How did we get here? Abiogenesis. This whole question. How about endings? Endings are as important, if not more important, than beginnings, because for one thing, we should all agree upon one thing, that we exist in the here and now, irrespective of how we believe that we got here, whether it be some supernatural force or whether it was a natural process as the universe unfolded. The thing that we can agree upon is that we exist now. We have a reality that we share, that many things existed before we did. That's what the fossil record attests to. That's what cosmology attests to. The deeper into space that we look, the further back in time we're looking, and we acknowledge that these things existed at some extremely long time in the past. And as we see the progression of the universe as it unfolded, things came to an end. And we understand that everything that we see comes to an end. For example, the sun. And it's a beautiful sunset right now. The sun has limited fuel. It has a certain amount of hydrogen that is the source of its power, is the fuel that keeps the fusion process going. It's the great vast amount of hydrogen compressing in at tremendous pressures due to gravitational attraction that cause the sun's fusion process at the core, and that the amount of energy that is given off by hydrogen fusing into helium, and helium into lithium, and so on, that gives a great outward pressure, and the gravitational force and the pressure of the fusion energy pushing outward is at an equilibrium that keeps the sun in a stable condition. But what happens when the fuel depletes? And that's what happens. The fuel is depleting. There's only so much. Yes, it takes billions of years, but we know the rate. We know how much energy is given off. We can convert that into mass, and we can understand mathematically how much life the sun has. We know about the Earth through science and through an understanding of the construction of the Earth. Seismology and geophysics has given us a pretty good understanding of how the planet Earth and its dynamics work. We have the plate tectonics and the fact that the center of the Earth is a molten core. We believe that That's due to the fission of uranium at the core of the Earth, and the heat keeps the nickel and iron melted in a molten state, creating convection currents. And these convection currents through the mantle create new crust that emerges to the surface. But what happens when the fission process ends? There's only so much uranium at the core. I mean, these are not trivial matters. The endings of things. We know that as the sun ages, new materials are created and fused, they give off greater amounts of energy. And as the sun's energy output increases, it has effects on the Earth's oceans, and all the water that makes life possible on Earth might boil away with this much greater amount of energy that will be that the sun will be emitting. So, it's not just how do things begin, but endings are just as important. And do we believe that it's reasonable? We have so many things, the overwhelming majority of things that we understand about the universe. We realize that there's an ending to it. My little grandson, he's only 4 years old, but he's fascinated with space, and he's fascinated with the solar system and planets, and he'll sit and he'll read books, adult books on it. He's actually surprising that way, at least to my wife and I. We're pretty impressed at how much interest a child, especially an active child that hardly sits, will sit there transfixed for 2 hours looking at a 2-hour nova on black holes. And I don't know how many times we've seen this, because he asks for it over and over again to see the black hole movie. And so we put it on for him. And he'll sit there transfixed, watching these top scientists like Kip Thorne talking about the universe and the black holes and the history of black holes and how the theory came to be, and how we were able to finally confirm their existence, and what ultimately impacts the universe, how they impact the universe. At the center of every large galaxy resides a tremendous black hole of a billion suns in mass, and as supergiant stars, supernova, the mass will implode into a black hole, or as two neutron stars encounter one another into a death spiral, will merge and create a black hole. And so the universe is dotted with these black holes, and with this process that is going on, over time, the universe will be consumed with black holes, because that's what they do. They consume matter, and they consume energy. Nothing escapes a black hole, not even light. And so eventually everything becomes consumed with black holes. And so after a certain amount of time, the universe as we know it doesn't exist. Do we expect that God will be, I guess I used this analogy before, like the little Dutch boy plugging the holes in the breaking dike, that he's got to plug it here and there and there and there. A God that's omniscient wouldn't have created a universe that he would have to constantly fix and patch. It's like the old car, with the brakes that go, and then the front end goes, and then the shock, the McPherson struts go, and then the head gasket goes, and you're repairing it one bit at a time because the car is falling to pieces here and there, and the costs start mounting up, and after a while, it gets to the point where you really have to make a decision. Is it more economical for you to continue to pour money into this money pit, or do you start over again and buy a new car? And it's kind of like that in the sense that an all-wise God. I mean, if the ideal would be for an engineer to design a car that will never have to be replaced, that you can only buy one car your entire life and it lasts the whole life. Of course, capitalism doesn't allow that because the car manufacturers would limit themselves and build themselves out of a market because the cars would last too long and they need a certain amount of turnover. But I'm sure that the engineers, if they really wanted to, could build a car that would last a heck of a lot longer in time than what they do. I mean, car manufacturers design these things purposely to have a limited lifetime so that every 10 years or so we're looking to buy a new vehicle. But that's not how somebody who doesn't have let's say an interest in making money would do it. They would build a car that would last a person's lifetime, and I'm sure that could be done, or at least for a lot longer than they currently build them. But God is this Dutch boy that's got to constantly use all his fingers to plug the holes, and we have other aspects of the universe that, again, I guess I'm repeating myself a little bit, but we know that the universe is expanding at an accelerated rate. It's not a constant rate. And the acceleration means that at the furthest extremities of the universe, the outer portion of what we call the observable universe, because we observe the universe in let's say as a sphere around the Earth, because we're at the center of our observable universe. And so the furthest that we can see is in a spherical manner with the Earth at the center. That means, but somebody else's observable universe is different, and we don't know how many of these overlapping universes there may be. Maybe 2/3 of the way out of from where we could see, that person's universe is as large as ours, and so theirs is further, and they can see a universe that we can't see. We don't know. If the universe is flat, this may be the situation, and the universe is infinite. But the universe that we do see is accelerating, and that means that the furthest reaches of the universe that we can see are accelerating at an increasing rate of speed. To the point where at some point the universe at those furthest reaches will be moving faster than the speed of light, and that section of the universe would be cut off from us. Now, you may ask, well, doesn't that violate Einstein's theory of relativity that matter and energy can't exceed the speed of light? Well, we're talking about space-time, which is neither matter nor energy. Those are dimensional things, and so they're not restricted, they're not limited by Einstein's relativity. Only matter and energy are dealt with relativity. So those things that are embedded in space-time, which would be accelerating and moving at a velocity greater than the speed of light, would be cut off from us. And then the cutoff point would actually be shrinking as time goes on to a smaller and smaller sphere of observable universe around us, to the point where it would tear our very molecules apart. So there's an ending there that would have to be dealt with, and everything that we know about with the universe would be, there's some ending. I mean, we don't even have to talk about that from any kind of length of time, because we know here on Earth itself we have what the geophysicists call supervolcanoes or hotspots, like Yellowstone, and Yellowstone has erupted on 3 occasions, and the last one was about 620,000 years ago. And these eruptions have been occurring at about a frequency of about 600,000 years between these eruptions. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be another eruption, but these hot spots, and there are several of these around the world. Hawaii is one of these hot spots. They are known to constantly erupt. I mean, Hawaii wouldn't exist. I mean, if you look at the Hawaiian Islands, you can see a chain of islands and suboceanic mountain range that extends for thousands of miles as the continental plate has moved over this particular hot spot. That's what's happened with Yellowstone. Now, in Yellowstone, they know that the magma is just right under the surface, just only a little distance, I think within miles of the surface. And nobody, I don't have to explain to anybody that there are geysers and that there are other phenomena there, physical phenomena that are as a result of the large pockets of magma that exist under the Yellowstone cauldron. It's a caldera, actually, a huge caldera that's I think some 40 miles or 35 miles in diameter. And if that erupted, that would not only obliterate the United States, but it could have actually very dire consequences to humanity itself, and it could spell the extinction of humanity. It's very likely that it would. It would be an event that would be so disruptive to the ecosystems of the planet. It would be like the meteor of 65 million years ago that put an end to the dinosaurs, because we would be, we live from month to month. Our paycheck is month to month. We live supply on demand. We don't plan for disasters in this world of ours and our economies. It just isn't profitable for companies to plan ahead and stockpile for major disasters, which may be our own shortcoming. So, anyway. These endings are important. Another aspect, and it just doesn't seem likely that a God would be so inclined to have created a universe that needed so many things to be repaired in order for human existence to continue. And it goes on well beyond any of the things that I have just elucidated upon. And the other thing, and I responded to my cousin's email with this, have you ever really thought about eternity? I mean, living for an eternity. And I'm not sure that I would want to. Now, don't get me wrong, I love life. If I had an opportunity to live longer, I wouldn't deny that. If scientists came up with a means by which we extend our lives 200-300 years, I think that would be fabulous, and it would offer an opportunity. That is, if they could extend your life in such a way that the quality of life is good, and then you can live comfortably and happily. There are so many things that you can pursue. Having a few extra years, or a couple hundred extra years, would certainly allow one to be able to. I know I look back at my life and I'd say, geez, I would have loved to have done that, but I'm 65 years old. I can't plan for another 30 years. I mean, who's going to give me a mortgage, a 30-year mortgage at this point? I mean, realistically, we get one crack at it, and if you get it right and you live a happy life, you're fortunate. Not many of us get that opportunity. And so being able to get a second chance for a couple hundred years might not be such a bad thing. We would have to be concerned with the overpopulation, that's for sure. We would have to curb the rate at which humanity is growing. We have to do that now. I mean, we already got a problem living 80 years when humans for most of humanity's existence lived on an average to about 30 years old. We've extended that to 80, and that's creating problems at this point with overpopulation, our ability to cure disease and to feed large numbers of people. We're reaching a limit now that the planet can't sustain much more without dire consequences. But that aside, I mean, I would take 200 or 300 more years. But if I think about living for eternity, I mean, really thinking about what it would mean to live an eternal life, I think there would come a point where, and I mentioned this to my therapist Friday, I'd want to blow my brains out. I think there would be a limit to which we couldn't stand living. I don't think that we could necessarily withstand that kind of existence. At a certain point, we become tired. We become bored. I think that there's a limit to which we can. I mean, our brains are limited. I know that as the older I get, and it's not necessarily because I'm losing my memory, but I think the further that we get away from certain parts of our lives, certain times of our lives, the less of that period we can remember. So, there's a limit to how much your brain can store and process and remember. And I don't know. Maybe this is a controversial matter. Maybe this is something that people would disagree vehemently with me about. But I think the idea of living an eternity isn't necessarily bliss, and I think this was one of the key doctrines of the Bible students of Charles Taze Russell of the Jehovah's Witnesses, is that after God is done doing what God's going to do, and I know the Bible students and the Jehovah's Witnesses both look at it a little differently. I mean, the Jehovah's Witnesses have this hard-ass kind of look at the world, and they're very harsh in their view of who's deserving to live and who isn't. But at some point, there's a number of people that will be deserving of everlasting life, and they will live forever. These individuals will live on the earth for time, all eternity, and the Bible students believe the same thing, that maybe there's a larger number, according to the Bible students, that all people will be given a chance to have an opportunity to live forever and ever and ever. But I don't know if anybody's ever really given it a whole lot of thought about what the full implications of that really means. After 1 billion years, I mean, it's inconceivable. I mean, living 100 years is hard enough. We can conceive of it because we know people have made it to that age. But to live 10,000 years or 20,000 years or 1 billion years or never ending, I think that I don't know how I would necessarily feel at a certain point in time. I think I wouldn't want to live any longer. I would want to come to an end at some point, and I think that's a natural thing, because all things come to an end, and I think they do so because that's the way the universe is, and should be. And so I'm not certain that anybody's really given it all that much. It sounds great on paper, It sounds like a wonderful thing that, live forever. And the other thing, it would be omniscience. One of the great joys of life is to learn, and the excitement that one gets when someone learns something. Of course, when you reach my age, learning becomes a little harder process. The brain doesn't work as quickly as it used to, but there is a thrill, there is a joy in learning something new. And that's one of the great things of life, one of the thrilling things of life. And the 144,000, and this is what the Bible students are running for. Every one of them are running for this opportunity to be part of the 144,000 who will co-rule with Jesus from heaven during the 1,000 years. Revelation 20 spells it out. They will live and rule with Christ for 1,000 years. This group is, according to Russell's teachings, and I'm not quite sure how the JWs look at it. I think they probably look at it similarly, because I think Rutherford was enough of a narcissist that he the idea of knowing everything would be, I think he already thought he knew everything, so I think that would be very appealing to him. So that may be part of the doctrinal, or at least maybe cultural understanding of the 144,000 within the Jehovah's Witnesses. But certainly that's the case with the Bible students, and that you will be equivalent with God in every respect, that God has chosen so wisely that he hasn't made any kind of mistake in choosing the individuals that will be part of the 144,000. He can trust every single one of them to put them in a position where they're death proof. In other words, they cannot die. When Russell talks about the divine nature in his studies in the scriptures, he's talking about a condition in which these individuals, it's impossible for them to die, and even God can't take their lives. So that kind of creates a bit of a paradox. And how could God be omnipotent if he's not able to take the life of one of those that he's exalted into this position of the high calling, the 144,000. But the point of it is that they will be like God in every respect, and they'll be omniscient. Well, their idea of omniscience is the true in the fullest sense, that they have all knowledge, and that there is nothing else for anyone to know, that they will have this expansive knowledge, that there's nothing that is left for them to learn, and so they have this all-knowing aspect. And how fun is that, to always have the right answer? I mean, I think that would drive me batty, to always have the answer, to have all the knowledge. And how fun is that? You know, the fun is in the learning. The fun is in the work that you put into learning. And the fun is in, I get it. And the ideas that are spurned from that. I mean, when you're omniscient, how can you have any ideas? You've already thought of everything, you know? So it just doesn't seem like a very desirable aspect, you know? It just doesn't seem realistic. And so I don't know, I just think about these things, and having had this dialogue continuing now for about a month between my cousin and I, you know, I don't wish any ill will toward him, but I did mention to him that if, and I have a grandson, and this grandson means absolutely everything to me. There's something different about a grandchild for a grandparent, and I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because you're one step removed. You know, with your own children, I love my children with all my heart. But you're young, and there's something a little different. You're consumed with, how am I going to support this family? Your mind is occupied by so many different things that you don't have the opportunity to really sit and appreciate every aspect of their growing up. But watching this little boy discover the world, and to see his mind and how it works, and to be so close to this, and to see the marvel of his seeing the world for the first time, and how he's dealing with it, and how his little mind is working with it all, is just absolutely fascinating. And I am so intrigued with it, and it makes me, I'm overwhelmed with this depth of love that I've never really experienced before for that little boy. And if I thought that the Bible students had the truth, I wouldn't do anything to hurt that little boy or to mislead him in any way. I want him to live in a world where he can live in a better life, have a better opportunity, have everything that I wasn't able to have in terms of the things of value and learning, and learning and appreciating the wonders of this amazing planet that we live on. And I wouldn't want to deny my grandson anything. And if I really thought that the Bible students had the truth, then I would do everything I could to give that little boy the opportunity that truth would give to him, enhancing his life. But I don't believe it. I just don't think, when you think about all of these things, it's misleading him. It would be misleading him to teach him that what the Bible students promote is the truth. And they live in a culture, they live in a stinted world that is just oppressive, repressive, and doesn't allow an individual the freedom to express themselves as an individual. And that's the trouble that I have with religion, especially religions like the Bible students, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, that rob individuals of the potential of who they could be. So anyway, this is Truth Seeker here. I hope that I'm able to sync this sound, and I wish everybody the best.